Okay, we'll just go directly into the Recreation, Public Parks, and Building Committee meeting at 7:27 p.m. Present are committee members Kelly, Heeman, and Broussard, council members Glassburn, Schuman, Limpert, and Williamson, Council President Jones, Mayor Kennedy, Director of Finance Copper, Director of Law Garreau, Director of Safety Service Glauner, Director of Planning and Community Development Lieber, Recreation Commissioner Drensky, City Engineer Mr. DeFranco, Mayor. Am I missing anybody yet? Okay, it's hard to see on here. And guess, this is to talk about the walking path and the pocket park that we discussed in depth last week. And I'll ask Ms. Lieber if she wants to discuss it more right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple questions came out of your last committee meeting, and one was a concern that the county would not be in favor of the cost reductions that we had proposed and that it could jeopardize our funding. So I did communicate with Sarah Parks Jackson, who's the program administrator with the county, and she said that I outlined in great detail what our budget reductions were and how it would impact the projects. And she said she had no concern with our proposed budget modifications because they did not impact the grant request. We weren't asking for more money and we weren't asking for more time. So I felt, given the level of detail I had in our communication, that I feel good that our budget reductions aren't putting us in bad shape with Cuyahoga County and that we could proceed with the reduced city contribution. Also, since the last meeting, several people have been reaching out to community organizations and individuals looking for support for the Pocket Park project. So at this point, I would feel confident sharing with council that we have at least $5,000 committed from individuals and groups. It's hard to quantify an exact number because verbals have been given by individuals and groups, some with numbers attached and some without numbers attached. And of course, you know, money, you got to put your money where your mouth is. So voicing approval is a little bit different than writing the check. But I feel confident between Friends of North Olmsted Parks and Rec, Kiwanis, Community Council, Arts Commission, and various private individuals who have indicated support for these projects. $1,000 of the $10,000 city contribution, if not more. Beyond that, I don't want to make any pledges. I don't want to say anything, make any promises I can't keep, but I feel pretty confident that we can definitely cut into that city share by at least half of what we discussed at our past meeting. And that's really all the updates I have at this point.
Okay, so I expressed my concern last week about putting any city money at all into the pocket park with the current conditions that are out there at this time. And if there's going to be legislation drawn up for the pocket park and for the walking path, I'd prefer that those were drawn up separately and not together. Does anybody from committee or the administration have anything they want to say at this point? Council? Oh, wait. I'm sorry. These little icons are in front of your face there, Ms. Heeman.
I know.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and Mayor, you're behind all my icons, so sorry about that. Thank you. Yes, I would agree that, you know, if we're going to have to vote on certain things, that they be in separate pieces of legislation, just so that there's clarification as to which piece and how much funding goes to which part. I'm in favor of actually both of these if reductions can be had. Obviously, I think the pocket park could be more challenging than the walking path. But I do think that it's important to make sure that, you know, the county is squared away on all of these things, because it's just the kind of right kind of disclosure to do. You don't take the money and then change the project. So with that said, I would agree, Mr. Kelly, that separate legislation would serve us a little better than a joint piece. Thank you.
Anybody else from committee? Mr. Broussard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would agree with you. I actually don't have an issue with two separate pieces of legislation for the two projects, so I agree with you there. I just want to take an opportunity to thank Director Lieber and certain council members who kind of went above and beyond in bridging that funding gap for the city portion. So really kudos to you. You know who you are. And so bringing it a little bit closer to reality, perhaps. Thank you for your efforts. Also want to indicate that since our last meeting, the outpouring of support from the general public on both projects, but primarily the walking path, has really been pretty substantial, whether it be people calling me, texting me, emailing me, or stopping me on the street in my neighborhood. It's been really remarkable. So I think we're heading down, pun intended, the right path here. And thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Broussard. And as far as the support from the community for this walking path, I'm in agreement with that. And I believe the walking path should go forward. I still have issues with the pocket park when it comes to city money involved at this point. Anybody else from council want to speak?
Mr. Kelly,
Mr. Schuman.
I just want to say when Director Lieber and I began to reach out to some folks for money, we were able to raise $5,000 in about 2.5 hours. I think after the park is built, because we pared this back so much, we probably would be able to make additional improvements to the park with another go at money. You got to be real careful right now, though. I mean, you don't want to exhaust all your resources, because there's going to be a lot of organizations in town that are going to be hurting for money. There's going to be a lot of people reaching out for donations coming up. So we had a goal of $5,000, and the last person that I spoke to said, "How much do you need?" So we got the money in a relatively short period of time. I think that shows an enormous amount of support for this pocket park, and I think that's something that council should consider as we move forward here. To be able to have a park like what we're proposing, and to be able to do it with $5,000 out of pocket is amazing to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Schuman. Anyone else have any comments? So, Mr. Glassburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Following our conversations last meeting and the somewhat discrepancies between what the director and I each heard, I called to reconfirm what I understood and what I heard. getting closer to similar versions at this point. Administrator Jackson said that she would be willing to send something in writing. I think that would be good for us to have to indicate that the county will accept these. She was wanting on the pocket park, because that fund is managed by the county council, to get their sign off as well. But I reached out to county council staff, and she will be as well, to try to get their more direct sign off. As to donation, I applaud the efforts of those who've raised funds, particularly Councilman Schuman. It's good that we can work together on these types of projects. And that's all I have to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glassburn. Ms. Lieber.
Mr. Chair, I do have an email from Sarah Parks Jackson that does put our budget amendments, approval of said amendments in writing. So I guess I feel pretty confident that we have the assurances we need from the proper county official to move forward.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so then we'll be looking forward to see what kind of legislation we get next Tuesday for these projects. And that I'll end the meeting at 7:36 p.m. Thank you.